Ooby-doo! It's everyone's favorite boomer and vintage lens enthusiast. And today we're going to look at Sears MC, which I guess means multi-coated. 28mm, 1 to 2.8. This has two serial numbers on it. Maybe one's a date code, I don't know. Of course, this is an off-brand lens. It's about as off-brand as you could get. It may have been made by Tokina, Chinon, or Cosina. You could look into that. I can't say where it was made, but it's an M42 mount on a Canon EOS bayonet. I'm using the Fotodiox M42 EF V2. I guess it's named after those rockets they used in World War II. I don't know. Oh, I could see why I got rid of M42 screw mount. And I could see why Canon got rid of the FD mount. So I had the original Canon Digital Rebel that didn't have anything, so it's called Digital Rebel. That died on me. I used it so much that one day it stopped operating. So I went out and I bought the XT, and I was happy with it because it went from 6 to 8 megapixels. But soon after, they came out with the XTi, which is 10 megapixels. And of course, like a dope, I had Technolust, and I went out and got it. I took a lot of good pictures with this camera. What they did is they had like a more professional model, and they took the guts from that model, which is maybe 2 versions advanced, and they put it in this thing. And if you use Magic Lantern, there's a whole bunch of features that you could unlock that was only from that more advanced camera. But I don't use Magic Lantern. So what's this thing's claim to fame? It has a bigger LCD screen, much bigger than the original Digital Rebel or the XT. It still maintains its lightness. If I go into menu, LCD brightness. See, it still works and it gets actually bright. But I leave it on nominal. And I discovered through empirical experimentation. Let's turn this back on again. See, Canon is interesting. See, this is a scale. It'll tell you I'm -2 f-stops under by turning this dial. And you see now, that's his nominal. But I discovered that using these M42 mount lenses on this camera, I have to set it at -1. And then the pictures come out pretty damn near perfect. So that's pretty cool. So I'm going to take these things are dirt cheap. Oh my God, they are so cheap. They're like 10 bucks, right? So you could buy 3 of them. Say you had 3 M42 lenses, or you think you're going to buy one, just get a couple so you don't have to go through all that crazy business with the... There we go. So Canon got rid of their FD mount. They went to this EOS mount, and all their cameras depend on AF. They don't expect you to use a manual focus lens except under some rare conditions. The viewfinder doesn't have a focusing screen. It's more of an aerial screen. It does have some squares. I think there's like 9 squares. It projects a LED on each one wherever the autofocus is supposed to be. I don't see any way to set a focus confirmation on this thing in the menu. And what it is, let's take this off again. All these contacts here with the lens. It communicates with the lens and does its magic stuff. So it's still interesting that you can still use it in this format. So I bought this lens a long time ago, long time ago, like maybe in the 80s, late 80s. I think I paid 30 bucks for it. It was brand new condition. And I used it on a film camera. That's how old it was. And it was an okay performer. Oh, I subsequently got a Canon FD 28 2.8, the new FD. And rather, instead where the silver ring you had to turn the whole ring to lock it on, but it's neither here or there. So what did I do with this? I decided, well, I'm going to go to the park and take some pictures, and then we're going to look at them and see how good this combo is. And this is a really good combo. 10 megapixel is really the minimum you want to go for. And it does have really nice rendition and coloring. It's more advanced than the XT was. I'm sorry, but the XT is a totally dead camera. And I doubt I'll be using it more, except I have a radioactive lens on it. I want to see how long it takes to cook the chip on the XT, not the XTi. It's got a brighter LCD screen. It has a brighter viewfinder. I couldn't get over how dark the XT optical viewfinder was. I cleaned it off as best I could, but it's just dark. And even with a 1.4 lens, it was still hard to focus. This is 2.8, and I was able to get focus. Now notice with this Fotodiox adapter, the index is right on top where it's supposed to be, although it's sort of blocked by this thing, the flash, pop-up flash. And basically what I had to do is if I'm focusing something, I had to go like this. Oh, that was it. Then I had to go back a couple times, like 3 or 4 times, and said, yeah, that's it. And I did that for all distances. So what I was doing is I was focusing at f2.8. Then I stopped down to f8. That's my aperture of choice. And then I would just dial in minus one for exposure and take my picture. Let's look at what I must have some in here. Well, it may look dark, but that's the thing. I have a nominal, and it looks dark, but these pictures are properly exposed. Really, they are. Let's zoom up on this. These pictures are in a slideshow, but maybe for some future slideshow. So this is a nice lens. I can't believe it. It's a really nice lens. It has a little bit of flare. I think it's a little bit of low contrast. It seems to have some distortion. But then all it does is that means it has character. So it isn't a lens you just chuck because it's a piece of garbage Sears. Sears actually went to some, fourth bananas who, like I said, Tokina, Chinon, or Cosina, and they were making stuff for anybody else. Vivitar, Tamron in the beginning, I believe, but then they went out and they branched out into their own products too. And then now they have niche markets, especially Tokina, but that's another story. So this thing, the aperture blades look like they've never been used, and it is probably low mileage lens. I really like it. I like this combo. And you say, well, boomer, why the hell you want to go backwards? Don't use stone knives and bearskins or a pinhole camera. Don't worry, that's the next thing on the list, a pinhole adapter. But I want to stick with this. See, I came up, because I'm a boomer, with manual cameras. All they had was a helpful hint like this thing. They had a mechanical match needle, right? Oh, there you go. You got to press the shutter button halfway. So the match needle was like this thing. So it was in the middle, you had the proper exposure. This is all electronic. Minus one is the proper exposure. So I have to think, what F number do I want? Sometimes I want 2.8, maybe sometimes I want one of these other numbers, and sometimes I'm going to want 16. And I get to dial in whatever shutter speed I want. So it's like I'm programming it, with the aperture and the shutter speed. I'm doing it manually. See, it's in manual. Yeah, it takes time. Oh, and focusing is a pain in the butt. I have to give kudos to Pentax and their KD series, because they have a finer focusing screen. That is neither perfect, but it also has a focus indicator that works with anything. You put a manual lens on it, and when you see they have a LED status bar, and when your green hexagon lights up, you're in focus. And concurrently at the same time, it beeps, and it has a red dot lights up, and you have 3 things to tell you it's in focus. And, well, it's only about 60% accurate. Some lenses, it's like 90% accurate, some it's not. But, that's a different thing. This has none of that. They made all their EOS digitals to be strictly autofocus. So all you have to worry about is composing in the viewfinder and looking at your status bar. So in the status bar, you can get all this stuff. You get the F number, you get the shutter speed and ISO, right? And then here's a picture of your AF points. They light up in the viewfinder. But that's neither here nor there. It's a little heavy, but it's not extremely heavy. It's well used, but I mean, it hasn't been abused. It could be well used, but not abused. And so I went to the park, and I really liked this lens. But, you know, it wasn't wide enough because this is a crop sensor. 28, a half of 28 is what, 14? So 28 and 14, that's 30, 40, 42. Yes, 42. It'd be like a 42 millimeter. It'd be like a slightly wide normal lens on a full frame camera. So I went out and I bought special, just for this, Pentax M42 f3.5 24 millimeter. Half of 24 millimeter is 12s, and 24 and 12 is 36. That would be an actual wide angle lens on even a crop sensor. And that's going to be my next photo shoot. But for now, I mean, this is a treat. You say, you know, I was in some thrift shop and I saw Auto Sears MC 28 millimeter. I wonder if they're any good. They wanted $5 for it. I don't want to waste my $5 or $20. Well, guess what? If you want to experiment with vintage glass, it's a decent lens. I highly recommend it. You know, it takes excellent snapshots, without a doubt. And it matches a 10 megapixel sensor really well. I mean, the image sort of falls apart right when the chip falls apart. I mean, as you zoom up on it. So there's that going for it. But the proof is in the pudding, or the proof is in the photos. So why don't we just jump right into the photos and you can look for yourself. I'm sorry that I live next to this park. It's a nice park. I like it. And I'm not taking pictures of reeds and rocks and brooks over and over again, but it's for you to look. They're reference photos. I say, yeah, you know, this lens looks a little better. I like the way this one looks, and that's for you to decide. I mean, I could have got a test chart and took a whole bunch of pictures with a test chart and talk about how dry of dust and boring that would be. And I plan to do some more photo opportunities with this in some towns and maybe some car shows, just so I could get retro. And that's what I do, you know. And it's a benefit to you, the viewer, to see exactly how good or bad these different combos are. And this is a pretty different combo, if you don't mind getting all retro and, you know, primitive. And it's exactly, yeah, it's primitive. Manual focus, you got focus wide open, then stop down. This goes from 2.8 to f16 and full stops, so it's easy to remember. 2.8, 4, 5.6, 8, then you could start shooting. And if the light doesn't vary, you'll find that you know, your exposure indicator won't change too much. And then, you know, you can always bump up the ISO higher or lower depending on how bright or dim it is. So, all right, let's go look at some photos. You decide. Have you ever taken a walk in the park, or do you run through it? Well, I take a walk in the park. And I stuck a Auto Sears MC 28mm f2.8 on a Canon XTi using the Fotodiox adapter. And I was rather pleased with the results. I mean, it's old school. I mean, I had to focus by eye, by turning a ring. I had to go back and forth 3 times before I was satisfied. And I had to focus wide open and then count the clicks down to get to f8. And I had to make sure that the shutter speed was correct. And that's about as old school as you could get. You know, and it came out pretty good. And you know what? You feel better when you fiddle with the gear and you still get a good picture. You know, I think that's amazing. You know, all right, I have autofocus SLRs, and you know, all you have to do is push the button and boom, you got a good picture. So, you know, it takes away from the immediacy, but it makes it more intimate in a way. That's what I think. So it's doable. Using an old Canon EOS digital SLR with an adapter and old school M42 mount lenses is totally doable. And I think these results speak for themselves. Well, it's not for action photography, definitely not for action photography, but for still lifes and landscapes, it's good enough. Cityscapes, or of course, the thing is, if everything's at a reasonably far distance and you're using f8 and a fast shutter speed, then you could pretty just blast away, really. I guess, you could use a higher shutter speed, stop down at f11, f16, get more depth of field, and just blast away. Although the XTi has a brighter viewfinder than the XT, when you stop down, the viewfinder doesn't get dark. So even at f11 or f16, they have to be bright sun for you to compose and frame correctly. So there's that. You got to keep that in mind. But, I went to the park. Here's the usual subjects you see. And I was pleased with them. 10 megapixels is the minimum you want, without a doubt. 10 megapixels. Of course, like I said before, Canon, they made their stuff to be autofocus, and they built their viewfinders for that. Now, the later Canons, like the XTi or the T3i or the SL2, they have a live mode where you push this button and the mirror flips up and you can preview the scene and you can actually focus on the screen and magnify the screen to focus it and do all that cool stuff. But, I'm going to do that. But for now, I always want to see if these old beasts are useful. And the XTi is useful. Now, the XT is not so useful. I'm sorry to say it's totally obsolete. And, well, I'm torture testing that with a radioactive lens that I'm just leaving on to see what happens. Sasquatch built these walls. I thought it was ancient aliens, but no, it's Sasquatch built these walls. People can't do this, people are stupid. I should know I'm a people. I recognize stupidity when I see it. So, Sasquatch all the way, Bigfoot. And, I took some pictures wide open. They were a little bit soft in the corners, but stopped down and sharpened up really well. And this is a very useful lens. It's a, it's not even a third string. It's a fourth string lens, auto Sears. But if you could pick one up in perfect condition for $5 or $10, it's a bargain. Go for it. Get mixed up into vintage lenses, and the adapters are dirt cheap. They're $10. Why not do it? Play around with it. And the skill when you go back to more automatic cameras may help you. Decide what's good and what's bad and whatnot. Here's the gate latch, and this is downsample crop, and here's the even 1:1 crop, and it held its own. It held its own. Forsythias, I went to the park, early to mid-April, and forsythias were blooming, and they're gone now. They're so ephemeral. But, I was glad I got there and looked at them. And luckily the weather was a little bit cool, a little bit damp, and the park wasn't too crowded. But the problem is the parks are going to get crowded from now on. So I'm going to switch to more urban scenes and cities. And here's some guys or some ladies front abutment to the road. And it's got the forsythias and a flowering tree, which I thought was pretty cool. And then here's some stuff in my front yard and backyard. This is the closest focusing distance. It came out pretty good, I think. And I just like the way this lens looked. It's definitely a good performer. I recommend you should get one. This is a flash photo. So, you got to explore and try new things or old things or both.